So JavaScript objects, this part 3. So this is bound at runtime in JavaScript, as we've said, not in compile time. In most cases, this in JavaScript will behave like its bound sibling languages. We've seen that too. Functions can join and become members of JavaScript objects, and then this will refer to the object that it joined. So this is a kind of a JavaScript superpower, this runtime behavior of this. Callbacks, though, however, registered with a JavaScript runtime have a problem if this is used directly, because the running context of this is now the global window. In the demo, we will understand more about the runtime nature of this in JavaScript. Namely, we're going to look at the JavaScript function, the arrow function, which does not have this defined. So now running the script called arrow functions make poor member functions. So I have a normally defined function as a function expression, and then I have an arrow function. So say name, we'll say the name, and then say age, we'll also say this dot age, but we expect a problem. That is, age is undefined because this is undefined in the arrow function. Now, but there's still this, something's there. It's just not known about. So instead, how does it find this? It finds it lexically instead of at runtime. So in say name, it's finding it at runtime. It's inside the runtime object. When o2.sayAge runs, it'll find this lexically. That is, it'll find the window, the global window's this because it's running at the global window. So any object that is running inside, that becomes the this lexically. I'll hit refresh and we'll see that behavior. So normal behavior for John, but say age is undefined. And then when I just print out say age and do this, we see the global window is there. So in general, if you write member functions of an object, you don't want to use arrow functions. They do solve a problem, however, and we'll look at the problem that they solve in the next example. Okay, in this example, I have actually 3 timeout functions defined. I defined the object O2, setting the first name property, the age property, and then a timeout demo. This will review the problem here. Remember, this is determined at runtime, and in this callback context, it will be in the global windows context, the global window object, not in our current object. The solution for that is to use a local variable, which is then found lexically instead of in the running context, and that then is a copy of this and behaves that way in the context of this callback function. And then the solution that uses the arrow function. Remember, the arrow function doesn't have this, so it determines that what this means lexically, just like this solution here. So an arrow function straightforwardly solves the problem of the callback function running in the global context. Because it lacks this itself, it finds it lexically, and since it's lexically defined in the current object, that's what it finds. So I'll refresh the page. We first see the undefined one, and then using that, we have John is found. And then using the arrow function, we have John is found again. So the arrow function solves the problem without this mechanism of having a local variable that is set to the this function. And now we're ready to talk about some conclusions about what motivated the design of the JavaScript arrow function. So the JavaScript arrow function, as you can see, is really convenient for defining callback functions. And callback functions are exactly where the problem that this appeared and bit JavaScript programmers the most in terms of kind of an obscure error popping up all of a sudden when you tried to access your own object's data members. Well, this was designed as a way to be a convenient way to do callback functions, as you can see. Once you get used to using arrow functions for callbacks, you won't want to use anything else. And they also solve the problem of callback functions by not defining their own this and by looking for the lexical container instead of the runtime container to resolve this. So that really concludes all we have to talk about in this function, and we'll look at a summary. So let's review this behavior. So this is bound at runtime in JavaScript, not at compile time. In most cases, this in JavaScript will behave like its bound sibling languages. However, the runtime nature of this allows flexible determination of this. Functions can join and become members of JavaScript objects, as we've seen. This will then refer to the objects that the function joined. There's other ways to specify this at runtime. We've just begun to scratch the surface. Callbacks registered with the JavaScript runtime have a problem if this is used directly. And this is because when the callback is called, the context of this is now the global window. This can be fixed by setting a local variable to this and using it in the callback function. This is a lexical fix because the local variable that you used is determined lexically, that is, by finding it. And by using arrow functions, since arrow functions were specifically designed to be used as callback functions. That's one of the reasons why they lack this and find it lexically, not dynamically. So they also look in the context of where they're defined, not in the context of where they're running, in order to determine this. So we have some more things to learn about this, but that concludes what we need to learn at a basic level. Thank you.